Hello and welcome to week 4. So, a quick recap. In week 3, we started with a topic, a subject, and we were able to go out and either find data or to scrape data or something to get us started and just looking to see what data kind of looks like. Data is a bunch of columns with some sort of topic to that column and a bunch of rows. And what we're hoping for is a topic that you could conceive of having thousands and thousands and thousands of rows. Really, we don't need thousands to work with, but we want to conceive that this topic is broad enough to support a lot of data because this class is about organizing a lot of data, and we want to make sure that whatever our topic is, it can support that. So if you did start with something like top 10 or something like, where it was already a small amount of data, just remove that concept and make it about all of those things rather than just the best ones. Um, we also might have found that there's data that we got that we don't even know what it means. There could be a column that says, uh, I don't know, this, and the answer is yes. There's basically data can be very idiosyncratic and kind of very, very low level. So what I asked you to do is just make sure to delete all that stuff. If you don't know what it means and you're not going to use it, uh, delete it, but you might need more data. So in my particular instance, I had a basic idea of what I needed, and then I found this data just didn't have enough to really work with. Then I found another source that gave me a bunch of ideas of different kinds of data I could add to it that really made it more useful for my purpose, and that was here. Um, and you all are doing the same thing. So hopefully you're finding or making up data that makes it more useful. And I think I really enjoyed the conversation as always. I know we had some glitches in Mural. I'm talking to Mural right now about a couple of instances of it getting a little bit off. So again, I appreciate everyone's hard work in getting used to this tool, which can be a little bit idiosyncratic. And again, hopefully you'll start to see the reason why understanding this idiosyncrasy will help us be a little bit more empathetic later when we're trying to make something with our own data. We went through some thought experiments this week to try to get ready for this week. The main ones being about hierarchy. Do you have the data that you need to make sense at all? Because remember, we're still at the very bottom of this pyramid. We moved up a little bit that we were actually looking at it and trying to see if it's any good. So we got through pattern, and now we're going to add it. We're trying to get to information right now. So a lot of discussion. I hope you all got a guidance from me and each other about some ideas of how to create some value to an end user. And we also want to make whatever we do be somewhat interesting to somebody else. That's a key item that you can idiosyncratically, much like these mural boards. Once we get used to it, we're kind of idiosyncratically organizing this. But if we're organizing it for somebody else, the context is very difficult to ascertain. So we want to learn some techniques to make it easier for other people to understand. So we're going to do that this week. In fact, excitingly enough, this week is going to be about information, and we're going to do it through Markup. So at the top, you're going to be able to read through here some of the tips. You're going to have some examples. You're also going to have some really great thinking about how you organize at an atomic level. This is a concept that Brad Frost came up with. So I've got Brad Frost. You can read a little bit about Brad. This is all very super current now, because what we realize is that there's no really such thing as a display. It all is actually in the structure behind the display, and that structure is HTML, and specifically HTML5, because HTML5 added a bunch of fields that are really about describing and organizing the content. So you can see here some of these grouping tags. These are really meant to specifically describe elements to group. And for our purposes, we're really only interested in perhaps these middle bits. We're not building a page right now. What we're doing is just marking up a record. So the exercise is actually to take your fields and take the name of your fields and mark up a record. One record all the way through with the fields in the order that you think makes some kind of sense. Then we're going to translate that into HTML. And my main HTML that you need to think about are things like headings. And that's what I mean. What is more important than the other? H1 is heading 1. H2 is heading 2. If you really need it, there's H3. But this is the thought of which one of these items and in what combination do they start to make some sense. So it's still a thoughtful work that you're doing. I'm not asking you to learn to code HTML. I'm asking you to use this very controlled language in order to describe your content at a much, much higher level. So right now we're considering this information because, if you like it or not, most pages or content on the web is actually read by computers more than it's read by people. So what I want you to do is use a program or another site. It's called JS Fiddle. And I'll just take you to my example, which if you're, you should take a look at this because it's a good template to work off of. This is JS Fiddle. You will also share in JS Fiddle by using this collaboration area, or making this public by just sharing the URL itself. And this is a place where it'll kind of help you. So if I said H1, it'll kind of help you out with some of the tricky parts of HTML, let's call it that. It's a great tool. It's pretty easy to use, and I've got this as an example. Here's the first record marked up with just the names of the columns, and then the second, the same thing marked up with the structure that I'm looking for. And when you turn this in at the end of the week, I'm really just going to read it almost like you can read it now, because HTML is English language, and it should read and make some kind of sense. So this is the exercise for this week. As always, you can share on Mural and get my feedback. Please read the tutorials and other helpful bits in Canvas. And I hope you enjoy it. This is going to be kind of a challenge for many, but I think by the end of it, you'll really feel like you've tackled some new ground. Cheers.